Imagine visiting your loved one, sharing a meal, and saying goodbye, only to find out hours later that they were brutally murdered. This isn't a scene from a movie. It's the chilling case of Tony Aiello and Karen Navarra, a true crime story that defies explanation and leaves more questions than answers. Karen Navarra was a 67-year-old woman living a quiet life in San Jose, California. Her neighbors described her as kind and unassuming, with a routine that rarely changed. But in September 2018, her life was cut short in a brutal and mysterious way. Her stepfather-in-law, Tony Aiello, became the prime suspect in the case that baffled investigators. How could a 90-year-old man be involved in such a gruesome crime? And if he wasn't, who was? This is the story of a tragic murder, conflicting evidence, and a twist that still haunts to this day. In September 2018, Karen Navarro's lifeless body was discovered in her home by a concerned co-worker who had stopped by for a welfare check. Karen was slumped over in a chair, her face and head brutally beaten, with a knife still protruding from her neck. The scene was shocking, even to the seasoned investigators. The initial assumption was that this was a violent personal attack, the kind of crime usually committed by someone close to the victim. But who could have done such a thing? As investigators began piecing together Karen's final hours, one name stood out: Tony Aiello. He was one of the last people known to have seen her alive. But Tony wasn't just a 90-year-old man. He was a stepfather-in-law, a man with no history of violence. Could he really be responsible for such a horrific act? Tony had visited Karen just 5 days before her body was discovered. According to Tony, he had brought some food, stayed for a brief visit, and left. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's home appeared to corroborate his story. It showed his car arriving and leaving the area within a reasonable time frame. But something didn't add up. Investigators noticed Karen's Fitbit on her wrist, still intact despite the violent attack. Fitbit devices track heart rate, movement, and other vital signs. When they analyzed the data, they discovered that Karen's heart rate spiked at 3:20 p.m. on the day of Tony's visit, followed by a sudden stop, marking the exact time of her death. Surveillance footage showed Tony's car leaving the neighborhood at 3:23 p.m., just minutes after Karen's heart rate ceased. This critical detail placed Tony at the scene during the time of the murder, contradicting his claims and tightening the case against him. The evidence seemed strange. Tony's fingerprints were found on the pizza box inside Karen's home, which he had admitted to bringing her. Also, the surveillance footage didn't add up with his claims. But why would a 90-year-old man murder his own stepdaughter, someone he claimed to have loved? Tony's demeanor during interrogations was calm and cooperative. He maintained his innocence, repeatedly stating that he loved Karen and would never hurt her. Friends and family members also vouched for his character, describing him as a gentle, loving man. At one point during the interrogation, things started to get strange. The officers left Tony alone. He started mumbling strange things to himself, almost as an admission of guilt. They also found a jacket with traces of Karen's blood on it in a shed behind Tony's house. The police couldn't ignore the stacking evidence against him. Could Tony have committed this crime? Or was there another explanation? Adding to the mystery were the wounds on Karen's body. Forensic analysis suggested the killer was strong enough to inflict significant force, raising doubts about whether an elderly man like Tony could have carried out the attack. Yet there was no sign of a break-in or struggle, suggesting the victim knew her killer. Had it not been for the overwhelming evidence against Tony, one would never suspect a 90-year-old man of committing such a brutal crime. By December 2018, Tony Aiello was charged with Karen Navarro's murder. His advanced age and connection to Karen made the case highly unusual, drawing media attention nationwide. But even as the trial date approached, doubts lingered. How could a 90-year-old man commit such a brutal crime? And if he didn't, who else could have killed Karen? Officers dug deeper into Tony's background and uncovered troubling financial struggles. He was burdened with debts and loans, and his financial situation was growing increasingly dire. Further investigation revealed that he, along with Karen's mother, had taken out a life insurance policy on Karen. This discovery provided investigators with a potential motive.
The case took a dramatic turn when Tony Aiello died in custody, and although he was charged for murder, he never even stood trial. His death left the case unresolved, with no opportunity for him to clear his name or for a court to determine his guilt. For Karen's family, the loss was twofold. They had lost Karen in a brutal and senseless way, and now they would never know for certain whether Tony was responsible despite the overwhelming evidence and his almost confession whilst in the interrogation room by himself. In the years since, Karen Navarra's case has become a haunting reminder of how even the closest to us can commit such horrifying things. The evidence from Karen's Fitbit and the surveillance footage paints a damning picture of Tony. The Fitbit data, once considered a groundbreaking piece of evidence, revealed that Karen's heart stopped at 3:20 p.m., while surveillance footage confirmed Tony Aiello's car leaving the area at 3:23 p.m. These findings placed him at the scene during the critical moment, which in the end provided the police a crucial piece of evidence leading to the arrest of Tony Aiello. The tragic case of Karen Navarra and Tony Aiello is a chilling reminder of how complex and unpredictable human behavior can be. Did an elderly man commit an unthinkable act of violence, or did the real killer slip through the cracks? With Tony's death, we may never know the full truth. What remains are the unanswered questions and the painful loss felt by Karen's loved ones. Subscribe for more gripping true crime stories, and don't miss our next video.